I want to begin by telling you the story of Edward Frenkel, who grew up in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. So at the age of 16, Edward decided that he wanted to study pure math, which solves proofs using theoretical and abstract concepts. But the only place where you could really study pure math in the Soviet Union at that time was at Moscow State University. And when he applied, they told him that he couldn't be accepted because his father was Jewish. But undeterred, he decided he was going to apply anyway. And his mentality was, you know what? I'm going to do so well that it's going to be impossible for you to reject me. So he studies super hard and he gets on a train and he heads down to Moscow to take the test, which consists of 5 questions, with the 5th problem being so hard that prospective students were not expected to be able to do it. But because he was so focused and he had studied so hard, he actually got all 5 questions right, giving him a perfect score. Unfortunately for him, they also had an oral portion of the exam. They were given 2 problems at random. They had to finish the problems, raise their hand, and a proctor would come over and take their answer. He raises his hand, and the proctor keeps walking by him to answer other students. And eventually, he literally grabs the arm of the proctor, and he says, "Why aren't you taking my exam?" And the proctor says, "I'm not allowed to." Eventually, everybody filters out of the room, and there are 2 men who come in and sit next to him. And these 2 men are professors in pure math at the university. And you have to realize, Edward's 16 years old. These are full PhDs in mathematics. And they start asking him questions. What's the definition of a circle? What's the definition of a line? What's a ratio? What's a limit? What's a function? And he's answering every question perfectly. And they do this for 3 hours. And by the end, he's super tired. It's starting to get dark outside. And they say, okay, enough questions. We're going to give you problems to solve. So they put a problem down in front of him. And immediately, he can tell that this is math he has never seen before. But he's perseverant, so he starts working at it, and he's doing his best to figure it out. And as he's kind of getting to an answer, they put another problem down. This one's twice as hard as the first problem. And they say, you're running out of time. You need to go more quickly. So he starts working on that one. And then they place a 3rd problem down. It's the hardest of all. And eventually they call time. And they start grading it in front of him. First problem, no credit. Second problem, partial credit. 3rd problem, no credit. They gave him an F. And then the professor says to him, "You are denied admission to Moscow State University. Do you want to appeal this decision?" Edward, feeling kind of dejected, says, "No, I'll withdraw my application." One professor smiles and he gets up and he leaves, and the other one says, "You know what? I'll walk you out." So at this point, it's completely dark outside. There's nobody in the building. Everybody's gone home. And when they step into the elevator and the doors close, the professor turns to him and says, "Wow, you are so great. You know so much about math. I was really impressed." And Edward, he was kind of taken aback by this. This guy had been his inquisitor just moments before. And the professor says to him, "Let me give you a little piece of advice. If you apply to the Institute for Oil and Exploration, they take Jewish students like yourself. They will accept you." And so he handed him his file and he said, "Best of luck to you." Now we're going to come back to Edward's story a little bit later on in this episode. But for now, what I want to focus on is our theme, perseverance. How do we persevere when it seems like the cards of life are stacked against us? How do we pick ourselves up over and over again when we fail? And how do we approach the challenges in our lives so that we can be successful when it feels like there's all these obstacles standing in our way? To begin talking about this, I want to introduce you to someone who completely changed my perspective on perseverance. Will you join me in the kitchen?